Recording in progress.
Yes, ma'am. She has what?
Mr. King, unshare your screen. Where's Michelle?
Yeah.
Where is she? Where's Michelle?
She was out there. I don't know where. She was just out there talking to me.
Oh,
So you all set for the wedding?
Possibly true.
People versus Khalil Luster.
Alex Curry on behalf of the people, Your Honor, P84950.
Morning, Your Honor. Attention, we have Mr. Lester, P85229.
Co-counsel Tahar Faraj, P number 8517.
Where's your client?
He's right outside. Mr. Lester is present, Your Honor. Mr. Lester, can you state your name for the record, please?
Khalil Luster.
Go ahead and call your first witness, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Judge. The people's first witness would be Mr. Michael Johnson.
You can have a seat. Come on up, Mr. Johnson. It's all the way up here, Mr. Johnson.
Huh?
It's all the way up here.
I'm coming all the way over there?
You got them all the way over there, yeah.
Okay.
If you could stop right there and raise your right hand. Solemnly swear affirm testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
And go ahead, and I think that's a little bit of an incline, so be careful.
Okay. Yeah, I can see, okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Judge. And while you're getting situated, would you please state your name for the record?
Hold on. My name is Michael Johnson,
And Michael Johnson, where are you employed?
at the Barrington Apartments in Romulus, Michigan.
And what is your job title at Barrington Apartments?
I'm a maintenance technician.
And what do you do as a maintenance technician?
I repair and maintain the property, all the apartment units, anything that, is broken, I go to see if it's broken and fix it.
Inside the units of the apartments?
Yes.
And how does that work? Do tenants require appointments?
Well, I believe when they sign a lease, it lets them know that we can enter anytime for emergencies. But yes, the tenant puts in an order for me to come to do their repair, yes.
And once those appointments or those orders are filled out, you have permission to go into those apartments, correct?
Yes.
And now, Mr. Johnson, I want to direct your attention to August the 26th of 2021.
Mhm.
Did something occur that day that brings you into court?
Yes, I was shot.
And Mr. Johnson, could you take us to the beginning of those events? Where were you that day?
Okay. At 10 o'clock a.m., I was told from the owner of the property, a coworker of mine was told from an owner of the property to go to Khalil Luster's apartment to do some repairs for a Section 8 inspection or something like that.
And What was your coworker's name?
David.
What was his last name?
I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't want to.
That's all right.
I
First name
don't,
David.
yes.
So you received this order at 10 a.m., correct?
Yes.
And did you eventually go to that apartment?
Yes. So I told David that my prior interactions with that tenant, Mr. Luster, like he said to me, don't let the white man come between us.
Exactly.
So I did not want David to come.
Well, hang on.
Objection.
Relevance.
Just tell us what you did.
Okay, so I didn't want David to
Well,
go.
hang on, we'll move on from that, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Who is Mr. Lester?
The
Can I
tenant,
stop you? I have somebody in the courtroom that has a Barrington shirt on. I know there wasn't a motion for sequestration order, but I'm presuming that Mr. Kim probably wants one.
That's absolutely correct.
So the gentleman sitting in the back, are you a potential witness on this case?
that-
You have to have a seat out in the hallway.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
And no one else in the court is a potential witness, Judge, just for the record.
That's fine. I just saw his
Okay.
Barrington shirt and so.
Thank you, Judge.
okay, so sorry.
Well, hang on. So who is Mr. Lester?
The tenant at he's a tenant at the Barrington Apartments where I work.
And is he in the courtroom or on the Zoom screen today?
He's in the courtroom.
Could you point him out and tell the court what he's wearing?
He's over there wearing navy blue, sitting over the court right there.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
No objection.
It's reflected.
And what time did you and David arrive at his apartment?
About 10:15.
So 15 minutes after the first order?
Yeah, we went to get something from our shop, some tools and things, and then we went directly to Mr. Luster's unit.
And to your recollection, did Mr. Lester place an order for something to be fixed at his apartment?
Yeah, I had it. Yeah, yes, there was an order.
Just based on what you remember, what was that order for?
It was for a lot of stuff. So I like it was something. It was so many things.
That's fine, but there was an order to go to Mr. Lester's apartment.
Yes, it was.
So you arrived 10 to 15 minutes later. What happened? What did you do when you arrived at his apartment?
When I arrived, we knocked on the door, and me and David waited in the hallway for Mr. Lester to answer. He answered the door. He told us to wait. Then he closed the door again. Told us to wait a minute, and we stood in the hallway and waited for him to come back. Then he opened the door.
So you eventually opened the door to let you guys in?
Yes.
And based on your observation, did you and David enter the apartment?
Yes, we both entered the apartment.
What did you do when you entered the apartment?
I went into the kitchen and I started reading the work order list that was put in of what was wrong and asking him questions about what was going on in his apartment.
And after you were going through your work order, what did you do after that?
When I was going down the list, since I was in the kitchen, I got to a refrigerator. It said refrigerator's not working or something. So when I was already in the kitchen, so because the kitchen is literally when
Did you start working on the refrigerator?
turn in the door. Yes. So I bent down and I started to check the refrigerator to see if it was working.
And Mr. Johnson, what happened while you were working on the refrigerator?
When I was checking the refrigerator, I seen that it was working properly. So I was trying to convey that to Mr. Luster, and then he started to curse at me.
And as Mr. Luster started to curse at you, what did you do next?
I tried to explain to him more that it was, about the temperature and things. And then he said, "You're yelling." So I said, "I want to leave." So I stood up to close the refrigerator to leave.
And while you were leaving the apartment, what happened after that?
He must have looked, because where the kitchen entrance is right by the door. Mr. Luster put his hand on the door. The door wasn't open, so I couldn't.
Which door did he put his hand on?
The front door to leave. So he put his hand on the door and looked at and stood. He's big. It's a small area. He's kind of a bigger guy, so it's like no way to get to the door. He looked at me in my eyes and he called me a bitch or something, and then I called him a bitch back.
And what happened after you guys exchanged those insults?
He punched me in the face.
And what happened after he punched you in the face?
I punched him back in the face.
So did you guys start fighting after that?
Yes.
And what happened while you two were fighting?
He grabbed me by my neck, and we were fighting, and I was punching him. And then next thing I know, I heard a gun. It was a loud, it was super loud, noise. And I felt the pain in my back. My leg started to give up.
And did you ever see a gun?
Yes, I did see the gun. As my coworker as we were starting to fight, my coworker David was coming around the corner because he was working. I told him to work in the living room so that he was kind of away from Mr. Lester because of past events. So David was in the living room coming around me, the wall, because it's like a divider in the kitchen. So David was trying to run around.
Well, hang on. I'll ask David those questions.
So
What he was doing.
when David comes around,
Mr. Johnson, just when you heard the gun, so you saw the gun.
yes, I see.
What hand was the gun in?
It was in his right hand.
Right hand.
Yes.
And you said you had your head wrapped inside his arm.
Yes.
Was that
his left arm? So he had me like this because he was uppercutting me with this hand, and I had him with my other arm like this, with my right arm on his head, uppercutting him, and that's when I got the shot. So I couldn't see it before the gunshot before it happened because we were in the middle of fighting. So it was concealed. So he was pulling it while I was punching. All I heard was the shot and felt the pain. And then as I backed away, my coworker grabbed me to drag me out. I seen the gun.
Okay, that's when you saw the gun?
Yes.
You were getting dragged out,
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall what color that gun was?
It was black.
You recall what type of gun it was?
No, I do not.
What, was it a pistol?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a handgun.
Okay. And I know you said he was cursing at you while you were fixing the refrigerator.
Yes.
But after you guys exchanged those verbal insults and while you were fighting, did he say anything else before and after he shot you?
No.
Okay.
No, not that I can recall. He did not.
One moment, Judge.
Where were you shot at?
I was shot in my front. It went through my kidneys right here. My intestine, kidneys.
Is that why you're?
Yeah, because it came out and hit my nerves, sciatic nerves and stuff, so I can't walk because of my leg. Because where it came out, the bullet came out back here. So entered right here, came out like right here by my butt leg area.
So as of today, when you came in and you're on, I don't know what you call
I don't know what they call it.
your little wheelie.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your medical prognosis for recovery?
We're trying to figure it out right now because there's what is it, complex pain?
That's fine. Something with that you're trying to figure out.
Yes, I have this terrible pain. I can't walk in my.
So you have sciatic nerve pain.
Yes, and it's in my foot. So like it's just bypassing my leg.
So there's nerve damage through your back.
Yes,
And that's shooting down your leg. Okay.
Yes.
I have one more question for this witness, Your Honor. Mr. Johnson, where are the Barrington apartments located?
In Romulus, Michigan. I don't know the exact address.
The court will take judicial
It's-
notice that the
okay.
Barrington's in Romulus.
Okay. Then I have no further questions for this witness at this time, Judge.
Oh, sorry.
No, you have to stay.
I know.
Mr. King,
I know. I'm sorry.
You have to stay.
Okay.
Does the court mind use the podium?
You can, wherever your preference is.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk to you first about your relationship with Mr. Lester prior to you coming to the apartment that day. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, it's fair to say that you didn't like Mr. Lester, right?
No, that's not fair.
Not fair to say? What is
No, we follow each other on Instagram. I watch his Instagram right now. We were friends. We were talking 2 weeks ago. We were following each other on Instagram. He was telling me about his t-shirt business. I was thinking about buying t-shirts from him.
Okay,
I
so
did not have a problem with Mr. Lester at all.
so it's your testimony that you didn't tell any detective that Mr. Lester is excuse my language, Your Honor, an asshole?
No, I did not say asshole. I said he's a terrible, like a tough tenant. Like he told me to lift up a sink to caulk it. Like he said, you have to lift up the whole kitchen sink to put caulk. Like he's he's hard tenant. Like he's like, he's over your shoulder. He's telling you this is not right. So that's the only thing that I've ever really said. I do not recall calling Mr. Lester an asshole.
Your Honor, I was instructed by, I believe, Madam Clerk, that I can share audio through
Yeah, go
Zoom
ahead.
with the court. But I'm just gonna ask the court's indulgence while I figure that part of it
Sure.
out. While I'm figuring out the technology, you do recall being interviewed by a detective at the hospital, right?
Yes.
And that detective asked you questions about the events that happened that day?
Yes. Now I just had came out of surgery, so I was under heavy anesthesia, so I not totally recall that conversation.
Okay, but you recall the conversation?
Yeah, I do recall. An officer came to my room the day after I got shot. It's like 6 hours after I was out of surgery. Yes.
And he asked you questions about what happened?
Yes, he did.
And you gave him answers?
I did.
And you gave him, you described to him the events that happened that day?
Yes, I did.
And during that conversation, you referred to Mr. Lester.
If you have a recording and that's what I said, I don't remember. I don't remember. I really don't remember.
Hold on, Mr. Jackson. Are you asking again about calling him?
Correct.
I don't remember.
If he's got, no,
If he's got a recording, I don't remember.
Listen. You came out of surgery, you just been shot, whatever, you're telling so if the officer says, yep, he called, the victim called him an asshole, you probably did.
All right.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not,
okay.
I don't.
That's all
Probably,
that's all.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a possibility.
It is
You
a
may have said
possibility.
that.
I might have.
Okay.
I just don't remember that conversation that well that day.
Before that incident, you don't ever recall.
No, I did not.
Calling him that.
No.
But after this incident, you may have said
I
that.
probably did. I'm very upset about what
that's
happened
fine.
to me.
That's fine.
Moving on. Now, before you went to Mr. Lester's apartment, you spoke with your coworker who you identified as David.
Yes,
And that was the gentleman that was just standing here in the back of the courtroom.
absolutely.
All right. And when you were speaking with David, you described to him some of your past interactions with Mr. Lester.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. That's a yes.
And when you were describing those past interactions, you described them as less than pleasant, correct?
That's not totally correct. No, that's what I was describing earlier. I told him me and him was cool. But I did describe the things that the wrong things that he would tell you while you were in his apartment. I did describe his behavior, yes. But I also said that I was cool with him. We followed each other on Instagram. I was gonna buy some t-shirts from him. He's a cool guy. That's why I was there in the first place, because they were gonna send David by himself.
Now, and after you had this conversation with David, David then decided to record the interactions that were going to happen inside of the apartment, right?
Yes.
And you knew that?
I did not know David was recording at the time.
Okay. When you knocked on the door and you were greeted by Mr. Lester, he didn't appear aggressive at that time.
No, he did not appear aggressive.
And when you went to look at the refrigerator at that time, the two of you were talking about whether or not it should be repaired.
Yes.
And during that conversation, it's your testimony that Mr. Lester, he swore at you. That's what you said, right?
No, it's a recording.
What'd he say?
Fuck that, you just fixed this shit or something like that. It was something along the lines, fuck what you talking about, just your job is just fix it or something, he said. Something like that, along the lines of something like that.
Okay.
Or just replace it. Fuck all of what you talking about, just replace it. That's what your job is, or something like that, along those lines.
All right. Now, again, you recall talking to the detective, right?
Yes.
It's fair to say that when you were speaking with the detective, you told the detective that Mr. Lester actually used different curse words at you, correct?
Man, that was the day after. I'm not exactly sure what I said, so I could have said different curse words, yes.
So you don't recall saying that Mr. Lester called you hoes and words like motherfucker directly towards you?
I don't recall. Like, I really don't recall. I don't.
But you heard the recording of this exchange between you and Mr. Lester, right?
No. Yeah, yes, I have. Yes,
You
I
have heard, and it's
Uh-huh.
fair to say that at no point in time during that conversation did Mr. Lester ever call you a motherfucker, right?
No, he did not. I don't recall from the recording. No.
And
I
there
don't
was
believe so.
at no point in time during the audio recording that you heard that Mr. Lester actually called you any hoes, right?
No, no.
He did not.
He did not.
So when you told that to the detective, you were just adding facts, right?
I was drugged up. So I was upset and drugged up. So I don't really recall what I was saying there.
Well, let's talk about you being drugged up. You weren't so drugged up that you couldn't remember going to the apartment, right?
No, I remember to going to the apartment.
You remember that the argument started about the refrigerator, correct?
Yes, I
You
definitely.
remember-
I remember all of the major key points. Yes.
Right. You remember all of the major key points except for the conversation between you and Mr. Lester. That's where it starts to get fuzzy?
No, it doesn't. Got fuzzy in the hospital. It doesn't get fuzzy after. It was fuzzy that 6 hours after I was out of
Right.
surgery. It might have been a little
So
fuzzy.
Mr. Lester wasn't calling you words like motherfucker. He was calling you words like brother, right?
I don't remember. I don't recall from the recording. I don't recall hearing brother. I don't recall that.
You don't recall him calling you brother?
I do. I don't. Not from the recording. I have to listen to it again.
May I have a court's indulgence?
Yeah.
Would the court like me to mark my exhibits by letter or by number?
Is this, you mean for purposes of playing something?
Correct. Just by identification.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. And I am.
She doesn't have it to mark it, so it really doesn't matter. You just say defense one.
So I'm going to mark this as defense one, Your Honor, and hopefully I can get this to play. Court's indulgence. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to work for the purposes of feedback that the court may hear when I try to share my screen. I'm going to do it anyway, though. And if not, I'm just going to approach the witness if that's okay with the court.
That's fine.
Yeah, if not. Can you hear that?
I can hear it a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to just play it for the witness, Your Honor, because you're going to get feedback with the audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
We'll mark this defense one. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
And for the record, I'm opposing counsel. This is labeled and what you gave me from discovery as image 0004. Whatever.
My pleasure. Go back.
Not a problem. I want you to listen to that.
Okay.
For the record, I started at 0. I'm gonna pause it at 118. The voice you just heard there, that's Mr. Lester, correct? That's a yes?
Yes, yes, it is. Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, you had an opportunity to hear defense exhibit number 1,
Yeah,
and absent some of the
Feedback.
the noises that you heard because of the feedback, you were able to hear the words that were said, right?
yeah, he said brother.
Okay, and he said brother several times, right?
Yeah, after he cursed at me, though.
Right, I'm saying, so when you say cursed at you, what he actually said was, fuck all that, right?
Yeah,
Those are the only curse words that he used.
leaning over, looking down at me over the refrigerator.
Right, because you both were looking inside of the refrigerator.
Hmm.
But, so when you say curse, so it was more like he was cursing while he was talking, not cursing at you, correct?
Well, that's disrespectful. Period. To curse at
You know what, I'm not,
to curse at
it says what it says.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It is what it is.
I understand.
I mean, it is, you know, I took it as disrespect. Cursing, some people would take cursing as disrespect and some people wouldn't.
I understand, not barring that it was
That was disrespectful to me. I didn't understand what.
I'm gonna make my questions clear so that from now on I can ask a specific question. You can give me a specific answer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So if you notice, I didn't ask you anything about respect or disrespect, but you went there, correct?
Right.
So I'm gonna ask you very pointed questions, and at any point in time you don't understand my question, just let me know, and I'll either repeat it or I'll fix it in a way that is more specific.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Now, given the audio that you just heard, it was in fact you who raised your voice at Mr. Luster first, and not the other way around.
No, I never said that. Yes, it was. I did start to raise my voice once I felt disrespected.
Right. So again, you see what just happened there? Let me ask my question again more in a different way.
Okay.
After you were disrespected, you began to raise your voice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before Mr. Luster said, fuck all that, which you took as disrespect, he was not raising his voice, right? That's a no.
No, neither was I.
Even when he said those words to you, he was not raising his voice then, correct?
No.
So you in turn raised your voice first.
Yes.
Okay. And after you raised your voice, he asked you not to raise your voice at him, right?
Yes.
And you still did, correct?
Yeah, my reply was, you cursed at me.
Right. So you see what happened again there? I want you to answer my question.
Yes.
So my question to you is that even after he asked you not to raise your voice at him, you still proceeded to raise your voice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at that point, based on what you just heard, you told Mr. Luster, you just cussed at me, right?
Yes.
And to which he responded, I curse when I speak, right?
I couldn't hear that.
Okay, well, strike that question. Then let's do this. Ed, I want to make sure I understand your testimony correctly, right? Because you just said on direct examination that at this juncture, you getting up and you're ready to leave, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Luster, at this point in time, he's standing by the door, right?
Yes, the front door.
Which is next to the refrigerator you were just inspecting.
Yes, kind of it's like around a little corner, but it's, yeah. I mean, for general purposes, I guess, yes, it's like right next to it.
And it was your testimony that at this point in time, Mr. Luster closed the door?
No, he just put his hand on it when I was trying to leave.
Right.
And stood in front of it, like stood right there in the hallway, right? So I couldn't.
Let me make my questions a little more clear.
Yes.
Mr. Luster, at the point in which you continued to raise your voice, Mr. Luster then told you to get out of his house, right?
No, I said I was leaving first.
Okay, that's fine. You said you were leaving.
Yes.
And then he said to get out of his house, right? Yeah. I'm gonna say the exact words in a second.
Yes, he said that after I said I was leaving. Yes.
Okay. And the words he used were actually to the effect of "get your bitch ass out of my house," right?
Yes.
Okay. At this point in time, Mr. Luster opened the door, right?
No.
The door was already open?
The door was closed.
The door to the apartment was closed.
Yes, we closed it when we came in. It was not open.
Just yes or no, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure I got that answer from you.
Yes.
And you remember the door being closed?
Yes, I remember the door being closed.
Vividly?
Yes. Vividly.
Okay. Now, as according to you, Mr. Luster is standing with his hand, remember which hand it was, the right or left hand?
Let me see. So it would be his right hand.
He was standing with his right hand on the door.
His right hand would be his right hand. He facing me. It would be his right hand. We were facing each other, so it would be. All right, so we facing each other. Here. Maybe it was his left. It's hard to. Okay, so we were facing each other, and in my right. So I guess it would be his right hand. I'm
gonna make this a little easier.
His right hand.
Your Honor, I'm gonna mark this as defense 2, and I'm assuming since it's just a picture, we're gonna be able to see it.
Did you say it's a picture?
Yes.
Okay.
Of the home.
It's hard to visualize it right now. It was his right hand because we were facing each other, and it was this.
Give me 1 second. Before you give me answers, I have to present you with the question.
Okay.
Can you, oh, Lord, not that, excuse me, Your Honor. Lock that up. Close, 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 close. All right, here we go. You see what's been marked as defense 2?
So yeah, it was his right hand.
And we refer to the door. Well, first answer my question. You see what's been marked as defense exhibit 2?
Oh yes, I didn't hear you. I didn't understand what you said. Yes, I do.
And that is a picture of the apartment of Mr. Luster, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
And it is in the same condition in which you remember seeing it on that day, correct?
I believe so. I'm not sure. I mean, they all look. The apartments look the same. So I mean, without seeing any other.
Now, when you say that Mr. Luster had his hand on the door, you're referring to the front door of the apartment.
Absolutely.
And and that is the door that's open right in that picture, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you were inside of this area to the left of the picture because basically where this wall is with the light switch is where the refrigerator is, right?
On the other side of that wall where the light switch is where the refrigerator was, I was standing in that doorway right there.
Okay. Now,
and Mr. Luster was standing in that hallway, and I was standing in the doorway.
So
that doorway right there from the, you see how you can go into the kitchen?
Yeah.
There?
So let me ask you this: at what point did Mr. Luster take his hands off of the refrigerator and back towards the door?
When I got up to close the door, you can hear me close the door in the video. When I got up, I said I was leaving to close the door. Mr. Luster backed up and put his hand on in that hallway. He backed up into that hallway.
So it's back to the wall.
And I was in that doorway, and we were facing each other.
Now, at that point in time, you were approaching him, right?
To leave, yes.
Okay, but again, you were approaching him because he was by the door.
Yes.
Right. So he wasn't approaching you. You were actually approaching him.
No, he was not approaching me. I was approaching the doorway.
So when you say that Mr. Luster got face to face with you, it was actually you walked to his face because you were trying to leave, right?
Well, that's not how I view it, because he stood in front of he didn't move from in front of the door to let me leave. So that's getting in my face.
Let's be clear.
You would move when I say I'm leaving.
Give me 1 second before you go on a rant.
You would move.
Let's say if you were standing right where you are, sitting where you are.
Uh-huh.
And with the court's permission, I like to walk towards the witness.
Go ahead.
Okay. And I were to walk towards you to get behind you.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
At this point in time, I am walking to your face, right?
Yes.
Whether you move or not.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me re-ask my question again. Mr. Luster did not get in your face. You actually walked to his face, right? And he just didn't move.
I walked towards Mr. Luster, but not into his face.
Okay, so
I stopped before, I stopped in the doorway.
Okay, so it's your testimony that you guys were not face to face when you guys
No,
were.
we were face to face. When Mr. Luster was getting in my face, it was more when he was calling me a bitch. He was coming more at me. More like when I originally walked up to the door, all he did was back up into the hallway and put his hand on the door.
So let me be clear about what you just said. When you stood up, Mr. Luster walked backwards, correct?
Into the hallway, yes.
And you walked forward,
yes,
correct?
Absolutely.
And at some point, because there's a wall there, Mr. Luster stopped, correct?
Yes.
And you continued to move forward into his direction.
I stopped in the doorway.
Well, how far? Tell me.
You see how tiny that is?
Wait, please. Let me present you with a question before you give me an answer. I'm going to walk towards you.
Okay. With
the court's permission, and you tell me when to stop to show how far away you were from Mr. Luster when you stopped, okay?
Okay, about right here.
I'm going to walk.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we can take I want to speed this up. He says it's right in front of him, so it's less than a foot away.
Thank you. Less than a foot away?
Yeah, it's like right here.
Okay. And at that point in time, when you got into his face, you called Mr. Lester a bitch, right?
No,
You just heard it on the audio,
he
correct?
called me a bitch first.
I'm not saying that he didn't call you one first. What I'm saying is,
Okay, yes, I did call him a bitch.
Okay.
But I didn't step up to him and say, you a bitch. I didn't do that. No, I'm confused at what you were asking.
my question, that's what I'm saying. Listen to the question. If you don't answer, if you can't understand the question,
Okay.
ask me and I'll rephrase it, or I'll repeat it. Okay. At the point in which you were less than a foot away from Mr. Lester, you then called him a bitch, right?
Yes,
And you also told Mr. Lester, you better shut the fuck up, correct?
if that's what the video says.
That's what you
correct?
just heard.
Yes, yes, I did.
Okay. To which Mr. Lester replied, or what? Correct?
Yes,
And in fact, he asked you, or what, at least 3 times, correct?
I don't remember hearing that.
Okay, you at least heard him say, or what, at least
I
one
did
time.
hear say or what though.
And that was in response to you saying, shut the fuck up.
I'm not sure how the events.
If that's what the tapes, if
I
that's what the
guess
tape
so. I'm not
reflects.
sure how the events.
No.
played out on the tape.
And after Mr. Lester asked you, or what, you punched him in the head.
I did not.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened during this fight. You never hit the ground, right?
No, I never hit the ground.
Okay. Mr. Lester never was on top of you, right?
No.
Okay. This whole incident occurred in that little area of the hallway, right?
No, we actually wound up in the kitchen.
Okay, you wound up inside of the kitchen.
Because when he punched me, I backed up into the kitchen. So, because I was in that doorway when he punched me, I backed up into the kitchen. So we wound up in the kitchen.
Now, because
I was in that doorway to the kitchen. I was trying to show you on that video picture.
let me give you a question before you give me an answer. At the point in which I want to draw your attention to the moments before the gunshot went off, right?
Yes.
You, in your words, you were handling Mr. Lester, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. In your specific words, you were handling his big ass, correct?
Specifically.
Okay.
Yes,
And
that's
so,
what if you have a recording of me saying
give me a
something
second.
like that.
Give me a second.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't remember saying that.
Then say that, please.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that.
Okay. You don't remember telling the
If she keeps
detective?
saying if it's
Let me ask you a question before you give me an answer. I'm trying to speed this up as soon as, so I want you to just answer the questions that I'm giving you. If you don't remember, say I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay, so you don't remember when you were talking to the detective at the hospital, telling him that you believe that Mr. Lester shot you because you were handling his big ass. You don't remember that?
I do not remember saying that in the
Okay,
hospital.
well, I've seen what you said. Do you remember the altercation, the physical altercation?
Yes.
And you were handling him?
I mean, I was not getting beat up, and he's way bigger than me. He's trying to intimidate me. No, I was not.
I want you to answer my question. You were handling him?
I was handling my situation, yes.
Your situation was him?
Yes.
So you were handling him?
Yes, I was handling my
Okay,
situation.
and then right before, and you are not aware of any physical ailments Mr. Lester has, right?
I am not.
You don't know any issues he has with his heart, neck, or back?
I do not.
Okay. And so I want to be clear about what exactly was happening during the fight, because you made reference to when the gun went off, remember?
Uh-huh.
And you said that.
Yes, I remember.
That's a yes?
Yeah.
Thank you. So when you said that at the time in which the gun went off, you had your arms around his neck, well, at least one of your arms around his neck, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were punching him, right?
Yes.
And you said that one of his arms is also around your neck. Yes. All right. Now, I want you to clarify this because it wasn't too clear on direct examination. At the point in which you're punching him in the face while you have him in the headlock.
Yes.
You said that he was also punching you.
Yes. At first he was punching.
Yes, it's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I want to go again directly to right before the gunshots went off. Okay.
Okay.
I'm assuming because you have his neck bent over.
Yes. We're kind of hunched. Both of us are hunched.
For the record, I have my back bent, my right arm.
Yep.
And he is also punched over as well.
Yes.
Side by side.
Yes.
And you were which arm you're punching him with? Your right or left?
My left.
Your left. So you got him with your right arm, you're holding him tight. Because you don't want him to move.
Well, I mean, I wasn't holding, I mean, I was just, I don't know. Yeah, I'm fighting. I'm in the middle of a fight. I don't know how tight I was holding them. I don't know.
Well, let's clarify. You didn't just lay it up there softly, right?
No,
You were trying to control his neck and body, right?
I was trying to defend myself. Like he
While
grabbed me
defending
first, so I
yourself-
was just trying to defend myself.
While defending yourself, you had a grip on his neck with your right arm, right?
Judge, I'm gonna object to ask and answer.
Not a,
Stop.
Okay, well, you testified that while you guys were, while you had him around his neck and he had you by your neck, you said that you were punching him. He was trying to punch you, or was he actually punching?
he was punching me.
Punched you where?
He punched me in my face a couple times. He punched me in my face.
While you guys were hunched over?
Yes.
All right, and do you recall which hand he had? Your head. He had
It'll be his left.
Yeah, do with his left arm.
Because it would be his left arm, and he was punching me with his right, and I was the opposite. I was punching him with my
So
left.
you guys were side by side, head by head, bent over punching each other.
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, his punches stopped.
I don't. It was so fast. I don't remember the punches stopping. I just remember I was punching and then I got shot. I don't. It happened so fast.
Right. So you were punching him and then you got shot. Not you were getting punched and then got shot, right?
Well, I got punched, so I was getting punched I got punched a few times like before I got shot. So we were fighting. I was getting punched in my face. So I don't.
Let me make my question more clear. While you were punching him in the face, that is when you got shot.
Yes.
Right. So, and I'll move on from that part of it. Court's indulgence. Where did you get punched in the face?
Judge, I'm gonna object to ask and answer. There's been several questions asked about the punches.
Well,
Last time.
I'm just to be,
Last time.
okay. Where did you get punched in the face?
Like on this side and close to the middle. I mean, not really this side because that's not.
I'm sorry. So there's going to be a transcript of this. So when you're pointing to you have to give us
I
actual.
guess my right side and close to the middle.
The right side of your face?
The middle and the right, like from the middle to the right side.
Now, when you went to the hospital, were you treated for those punch wounds?
No.
Was there any bruising?
I did have some bruising, but no, I wasn't treated for them.
Was there any swelling?
No.
Did the police or the detective that came to visit you, did anyone take pictures of this bruising or swelling?
No, when they came, I was all totally, had tubes. My face was covered with stuff. I mean, you couldn't really see any of that at that time.
So the answer to my question is no.
No.
Are you aware of anyone that ever documented any swelling or bruising or scars from you being punched?
No.
Okay. When this gun went off one time, right?
Yes, it went off one time.
And when it went off, again, you still had Mr. Lester in that headlock.
I
right?
did.
All right. And at the point in which the gun goes off, you let go of Mr. Lester, right?
Yes.
So the pressure that you were applying to his neck was released as soon as you heard that pop.
No, it was not as soon as I heard that pop. I still was punching for a little bit.
So even after
because it had to register. I was still kind of adrenaline. I didn't immediately know. I was still kind of fighting. It was so fast. I didn't notice. I was still in the motion of fighting. I didn't notice.
And that's fine. So let me walk you through this. So you have him in the headlock. The gun goes off, and you're even before the gun goes off, you're punching him, and even after the gun goes off, you're still punching him, holding his neck, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in the fight. I'm still in the fight, yes.
Right. And After the gun goes off and you keep hitting Mr. Lester, he does not hit you again, right?
Well, I didn't really hit him. I mean, I was still swinging, but I didn't get it. I didn't hit him. Like it was, like it was, everything was coming apart. He was finally backing away and letting me go. And, we were separating.
So let's talk about that for a second. You just moments ago, you literally just said that after the gun goes off, you didn't let go and you were still hitting him.
Yeah, I was still punching. So I was still punching. I'm not sure if I was hitting him or not. I was just still flailing. Like I'm still punching, we still fighting. Not sure if I'm hitting him or not.
And but he's not hitting you.
No, he had a gun in his right hand, so he was not punching me. No.
He wasn't trying to strike you with the gun.
No, he did not. He did. See, this is what I'm saying. This happened so fast. He did not strike me with the gun.
You don't recall seeing him swing the gun at you in a swinging motion?
No.
Okay.
He did. I do recall him pointing it at me, but not swinging it to hit me. No.
Right. He pointed it at you after you let him go.
Yes.
And then after you let him go, he immediately holstered his weapon.
No, he followed us to the door as my coworker was dragging us out with the gun.
Okay, you don't recall this conversation with the detective about what Mr. Lester did with the gun after he shot you?
I don't remember. Like,
is it possible that you told this detective that you spoke to at the hospital
it is
that
possible.
After
he
shot you, he immediately holstered his weapon?
It is possible.
Okay, so is it fair to say that you don't really remember what happened after he?
Yeah, after the gunshot, I mean, everything is like really hate. I mean, it's really. I really totally honestly do not remember much after the gunshot. I just remember I was punching and then I got shot and then I was getting dragged out. Like, I don't remember too much after the gunshot. Like,
okay.
I was flailing, like it was.
So everything's fuzzy. So when you just said moments ago that he pointed the gun at you and basically walked to the door with the gun out, you don't remember that. You just assume.
I remember him walking towards the door. I remember him walking towards the door with us. I'm not sure if he had the gun in his hand or not. He might have holstered it. If that's what I might have said before, he might have holstered it, yes.
He only fired that weapon one time?
Yes.
While you, and the gentleman who removed you from the apartment, his name, again, you identified him as your coworker, David, right?
Yes.
Now, David's pulling you out of the apartment by your arm, right?
Yes.
Okay, you remember that part?
Yep.
Okay, and he pulled you out of the apartment and out of the building, correct?
Yes.
Now, as you're leaving the apartment and out of the building, and as you leave the apartment, you're still inside the building before you get outside, correct?
Yes.
And there's, about how far would you think there is between the door of the apartment and the front door of the building?
I don't know. It's a few feet. It's not that far.
Okay, Mr. Lester was not chasing you outside of the building.
He was not chasing me outside of the building.
He was not screaming anything at you.
Mr. Lester was not screaming anything.
Okay. I'm almost done, Your Honor. I just want to make sure. And how long have you known David?
I don't object to relevance on that, Judge.
Withdrawn. I want to talk about what you had in your hands at the time in which you and Mr. Lester were arguing.
Yes.
Now, again, let me give you questions before you give me answers.
Yes.
All right. When you came there, you had a drill.
Yes.
And you also had a,
Pair of pliers.
one more time?
So, my pliers.
Your pliers.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry, I meant to wait on you.
No,
So
it's fine. That time. Now, when you approached Mr. Luster, you were approaching, you were, like you said, headed to the door, right?
yes,
Meaning you were trying to leave.
yes,
Meaning, not meaning, but so at that point in time, you had your tools in your hand trying to walk out the door.
I did.
So, so just so I'm clear, when you approached Mr. Luster and you stopped about 12, you stopped less than a foot from in front of his face, you had a wrench and a drill inside of your hand.
I did.
And just finally, to be clear, it is your testimony that in the past, before that day of you and David going inside of Mr. Luster's apartment,
Yes.
is your testimony that you've never had any bad dealings with Mr. Luster?
No, I didn't have. I had no bad dealings with Mr. Luster.
No further questions, John.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Johnson, defense counsel asked you questions about the specifics, the very specifics of the event, but you said you only remember the key points.
Yes.
So when Mr. Luster cursed,
Yes.
you felt disrespected,
Yes, I did.
and you wanted to leave after you felt disrespected.
Immediately. That's how we're trained as maintenance technicians. Is when someone starts to curse, you immediately start to get ready to go because you don't know how the situation can escalate.
And you, in fact, tried to leave after this occurred, right?
Yes, I did.
And you had your tools in your hand as you were trying to leave.
Yes, I did.
During the altercation, did you threaten Mr. Luster with the tools?
No.
Did you, while the fight was going on, since there was a lot of talk about punching, did you drop the tools?
Yeah, when we started fighting, I mean, I didn't have, yeah, we're fighting.
You didn't swing the pliers at him?
No.
And you do remember being shot?
Yes,
And you remember being dragged out by David afterwards?
I do.
And I have no further questions, Judge.
You can step down, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Next witness.
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Motion.
The witnesses here, I'd like to call David, I can't pronounce his last name.
He doesn't, what is,
I'm sorry, I don't know the witness's last name. Again.
Lasits or Lessits.
Mr. Lessons, I'd like to call David Lessons.
you know, it's a probable cause conference. All he has to do is do probable cause. I don't really have to let you call witnesses, but it's going to be brief, Mr. King. Do you understand? Because, I mean, it's they have to prove probable cause. So it's not a trial. I'm not going to.
I understand it's not a trial, but the rules allow me to contest.
Well, it's debatable. Once he makes a motion to bind over, it's debatable whether, come on up, quick. Can you raise your right hand? Solemnly swear or affirm testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Have a seat right there.
Good morning, sir. Can you state your name for the record?
My name is David Lisatz.
Lisatz?
Lisatz?
Lisatz. Mr. Lisatz, are you employed?
Yes.
Where are you employed?
The Barrington Apartments.
Can you spell your last name?
Lesatz.
And were you employed at that place on August 26th of 2021?
Yes, I was.
I want to draw your attention to the events that occurred around 10 a.m. that morning. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Explain to the court what took place around how you came to strike that. At some point in time, do you recall going to an apartment for maintenance work?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain the circumstances in which you arrived at that apartment?
We showed up, we were putting our foot coverings on like it was requested. And it was same as any other apartment we went to. We knocked, and
When you say we, you and who?
Michael, my coworker Michael was with me as well.
All right. Now, I want to draw your attention to the moments in which you approached the apartment. Do you recall why you were going there?
I believe the complaint was about a refrigerator.
And before going inside of the apartment, you created a recording, right?
I did, yes.
Why'd you do that?
We've had issues where I've gone and tenants have gotten upset or hostile towards me. So at that point in time, I back off, and then they would tell the office that I was never there. So it was just to cover my end with my employer in case something happened.
Okay. Was there anything said to you that make you assume that Mr. Lester would be combative?
Just some chatter back and forth between some other coworkers that he seemed upset and a little hostile.
All right. Any of those? You say some coworkers? Was one of those coworkers the one person you were with that day?
Not specifically him. No.
All right. Now, at some point, you arrived at this apartment door, right?
Yes, sir.
Walk us through what happens.
Okay. We put our foot coverings on, knocked on the door, waited a few moments. The door was answered. We were told, hey, can you put your foot coverings on? When I say he, it was Mr. Lester. When Mr. Lester looked down and saw that we had our foot coverings on, he said, hold on a minute, close the door.
Now, I'm gonna stop you there. At some point, did you make entry into the apartment?
After Mr. Lester opened the door again, yes.
And what happened after that?
We just started going about our day. You know, what the first thing on the work order was a refrigerator. So we started diagnosing that and going through our procedures as set by our employer to fix it and communicating what the issue was with the tenant.
And your coworker, Mike, did he at any point in time open the refrigerator to inspect it?
He did.
And I want to go right there to that specific moment in time. What happened as he opened the refrigerator door?
He started feeling the items to see if they were cold and said that they were cold and was paraphrasing that back to the tenant. And at that point, the tenant, like, I don't want to hear that.
All right. And so let me be clear. He was seeing if things were cold. Why was he seeing if things were cold?
The process they tell us is, is make sure that it's not a settings issue or to verify that the refrigerator is broken. So it could be an issue where we get a technician out to replace it or get a new unit that's on property or one there immediately as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No
Can you please speak up a little bit? I'm having trouble.
Yes,
hearing you.
yes, sorry.
At the point in which your coworker indicated that, you said he said that it wasn't broken. Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
No, that wasn't said. He was just saying that the items are cold in here and that there's a certain, usually we go get a thermometer at that time and check to see how bad it is. And then you make the determination whether to replace the unit or have somebody come out and look at it and try to repair it.
And what happened next?
We never got that far.
Well, I mean, what happened after he is touching things that are cold?
He just turned and was communicating with the resident that, the items were cold in here, and I'm afraid I'm not understanding what you're asking.
And that's perfectly fine. I'm trying not to lead you here because I want these to be your words and not mine.
Mhm.
At some point, there was an altercation.
Yes, there was.
All right. And how did that come about?
When Mike said he wanted that the items were cold and that he was trying to explain that we need to check it with a thermometer and there's a process that we need to go on. At that point, Mr. Lester cut him off, got very upset, and, same as usual, that when a tenant is upset or seems hostile, we try to back off.
And so you were there as this conversation was happening between Mr. Lester and your coworker, Mike.
Yes.
And you said that Mr. Lester became hostile. How so?
When Mike started saying that we needed to check with a thermometer and then the items were cold, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but he did swear at Mike,
You can swear.
Fuck all that. I don't want to hear that is what exactly was said.
Okay. And then what did Mike say in response? Did Mike swear?
Not at that point. Mike tried saying that, there's a process we got to go through to help you. And he's like, I don't want to hear it. Mr. Lester says, I don't want to hear all that. You're here to do what's on the list.
Okay. And at any point in time, did Mike swear?
No, he was very clear that he was upset that we were being treated the way we were and that we wanted to leave.
All right, now at the point in which Mike tried to leave, was the front door open or closed?
The front door was closed.
At any point in time, did it open?
It opened slightly, yes.
Explain.
We were working our way towards the door. Mr. Lester opened the door a little bit. Seemed like he wanted to make us try to squeeze out through a narrow opening, and then he proceeded to get in Mike's face, told him to get his bitch ass out of his house, and next thing I knew, Mr. Lester was on top of Mike.
When you say, so let me be clear. So when you guys were walking towards Mr. Lester actually opened the door, right?
Yes.
And that's when the two started arguing, right?
The argument had started before the door was
It
open.
continued.
Yes.
And you said the next thing you knew, Mr. Lester was on top of Mike. He had him on the ground on top of him?
No, he just had him in a hold.
Explain that, please.
It's just like he grabbed him up and turned him away from the door.
And so he grabbed him around his waist.
Around the shoulders. It seemed like, from what I remember, it seemed like he had him around the shoulders of him.
Okay, but he definitely didn't punch him.
I didn't physically see that.
Right, but you were, how far away from you? How far away from the two?
As soon as the fight started, I had backed off.
No.
I was
Let
within
me
2 or
make my
3
question
feet.
clear. How far away from them, from Mr. Lester and Mike, were you at the point in which it became physical?
2-3 feet, maybe.
All right, and was there anything obstructing your view of the two of them?
No.
All right, and you did not at any point in time see Mr. Lester punch Mike?
Yes, I did after the initial scuffle started.
After the initial scuffle started, you saw, so walk me through that.
Okay. From my perspective, it seemed like Mr. Lester grabbed Mike and pushed him towards the kitchen, and then that's when fists started flying.
All right. Now, you after this incident happened, you called 911.
Yes.
You also spoke with the detective the same day at a later time.
Yes.
And at no point in time did you ever tell the detective that you saw that you saw Mr. Lester punch Mike?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Did you ever see Mike punch Mr. Lester?
Not a punch, no. He was trying to push him away to get back towards the door.
But he didn't punch him at all.
Not that I saw, no.
And when at any point in time, strike that. So after the altercation got physical, what did you do?
I stepped back. The first thing in my mind was to get around and try to break them up. When I got around the corner, I heard a pop, and when my mind turned to, I need to get Mike out and get help.
All right. Now, when you were trying to get around, did you turn and run away? Did you step backwards?
I stepped backwards and I turned to my right to go around the corner.
All right. And when you went around the corner, did you hear the pop and see a gun, or did you walk me through that?
I never seen it. I just heard a pop. I got 2 steps away around the corner, and then I heard a pop.
So how long did it take? How long between when it started to get physical and then when you walked around the corner?
I'd say less than 2 minutes. When I look back on it, the time that I started the video to the time.
No, so I don't want you to go based on the video. I'm asking you when you saw what was happening and then you started to walk backwards and walk around before hearing the pop, how much time had elapsed? And you don't have to be exact.
I'd say a minute and a half, but everything happened very quickly.
All right. So you were watching for about a minute before you went around the corner.
I'd say less than a minute, to be honest with you.
Okay. And so 30 seconds?
Give or take, yes.
All right, and you only saw Mr. Lester hitting Mike. You never saw Mike hit Mr. Lester.
The only thing I saw Mike trying to do was push him off of him.
Got it. And so when you heard this pop and you came around, you could see Mr. Lester and you could see Mike, right?
Mike, Mr. Lester was not in my vision at that time.
Where was he?
I don't know. My main intention was Mike because I caught eyes with him and it was, we need to go.
All right, but you could see Mike.
Yes.
And Mike was laying in front of the door.
He was standing up in front of the sink.
He was standing up in front of the sink.
Yes.
And Mr. Lester was no longer in the kitchen.
I did not see where Mr. Lester was at that point in time, no.
But the kitchen's relatively small, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Like you can literally touch both sides of the kitchen with your hands.
Yes, it is. Again, everything happened so quickly. I was not.
All right. As you were, when you pulled Mike out of the, well, how did you get Mike out of the apartment? Did you and Mike leave the apartment?
Yes, we did.
How?
When I got to the corner and seen him, he was still standing. I noticed blood on his shirt and I said, come on, let's go. We walked out of the apartment. I got to the stairway and he was yelling for my name. I turned back, he was down on his stomach and I carried him down pulled him down the stairs and got him to the front porch of the building we were in.
All right, so, and I'm gonna ask you a couple of follow-up questions. I'm gonna go back to one point before I let you go. As you were leaving the apartment, could you see Mr. Lester?
No.
As you were leaving the building, could you see Mr. Lester?
No.
At any point in time after you heard that pop, did you see Mr. Lester?
I did not know.
I want to go back to what you said about Mr. Lester being on top of Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So you described this action of him grabbing him as if he's almost like trying to tackle him, right?
Yes, that'd be a good, yes.
All right. And at this point in time, the two are still vertical, correct?
Yes.
So no one is on the ground.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Withdrawn. At no point in time in that apartment did Mr. Lester threaten you or Mike.
No.
Do you recall hearing Mike tell Mr. Lester that he better shut the fuck up?
I do not.
You also don't recall hearing Mr. Lester ask him, or what?
I do not.
And how long after Mr. Lester grabbed Mike did you see Mr. Lester punch Mike?
Nearly immediately. We said everything happened very quickly.
Right. So he grabbed him around the shoulders, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And they ended up into the kitchen, slammed up against the fridge and I believe the countertop next to it. And then at that point, I was going around the corner when the gunshot happened.
Right. My question was, after you saw them hit the fridge and the counter, when did you start seeing the punching? Before the fridge or before the counter or after?
Moving into the fridge to the counter, there were punches being thrown.
All right. Where were the drill and the wrench that Michael had at the time of the assault when
in front of the fridge on the countertop?
They weren't in his hands?
Not at that time that I recall, no.
Let me make my question clear before I sit down. When you and Michael were approaching the door to leave, his tools were on the countertop, is what you're saying?
Well, no, we were trying to leave, so he had gathered those up. So I assume, yes, they would be in his hand.
I'm not asking like what makes sense. I'm asking you what you recall seeing.
I do remember him picking his tools up, yes.
And walking towards the door.
Yes.
And at the time in which Mr. Lester grabbed Mike, where were those tools?
I don't know.
You didn't see him put them down before then, though, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
No further questions.
Mr. Leister or
Leasatz.
Leasatz. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Mr. Leasatz, when you came back around the corner after you heard the pop, did Mr. Johnson have tools in his hands?
No.
No further cross, Judge.
You can step down, sir. Motion.
Motion for a bind over, Judge. We heard clear testimony from both witnesses. We have a question of fact. So people would request a bind over as to all counts.
Argument, Mr. King?
Yes, Your Honor, we asked that the court not bind it over for many reasons. Counsel made representations about the questions of fact. However, as a court, the court is allowed to give weight to testimony or not. As the court could see, there were many inconsistencies with the statement from the complainant himself, as well as the witness who was there with regards to some of the things the complainant said in this case. Moreover, Your Honor, specifically with regards to assault with intent to murder, that, as the court knows, that is a specific intent crime. One of the elements of which are that the government has to prove that Mr. Lester intended specifically to kill the complainant. I'm sorry.
Response just on that.
Just on the, Judge.
Yeah, I mean, with the assault with intent.
Yeah, Judge, he was shot in I believe he pointed to this area over. So Judge, it doesn't matter, I guess, where the bullet actually ended up. Within the proximity of the defendant to Mr. Johnson, Judge, the gun was pointed directly at him, so people would move for a bind over as well.
I mean, I could go on. One of the exhibits I showed the bullet hole in the wall, and as the court, if the court doesn't recall, it's up on the top of the door. As a witness testified, that at the time in which the gun went off, he had Mr. Lester in a headlock and he was punching him, and the gun only went off once. If Mr. Lester actually intended to kill the complainant, he could have shot him more than once. He could have shot him on the way out the door.
He could have done a lot of things, Judge, but
I'm going to say that it's an issue of fact on that, and I listened to the testimony. That I'll let you finish. Go ahead. Go.
I mean, with the again, it's a specific intent crime. So specifically, even like given the small wording, and I understand it's a very small wording, and I understand that it is that the court.
And let me just for purposes of you, do I agree that charge is never going to make it anywhere downtown? That's my opinion. But for today's purposes, the fact that he was shot in this area, in his torso area, that I think it's an argument for a jury on whether it was a specific on the intention of the defendant at the time. And
I believe in the court, and I invite the court to correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe that the court is able to make a determination if the court believes that no reasonable juror can find Mr. Lester guilty of that crime, then the court is actually able at this juncture to not to bind that over, because if for nothing else in the interest of judicial economy, because that charge alone probably won't even make it past a motion after the close of the government's evidence during the trial. And again, the gunshot that was fired from a position of self-defense, which was I'm going to argue for the other element, the other crimes. And it was shot one time.
I understand what I have a problem with the assault with intent to murder. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm going to, which also in the alternative also means that I'm not binding over on count 4, which is the tag along felony firearm on the assault with intent. But I am going to bind over on count 2, 3, 5, and 6. But before I do the bind over, there's a motion on the bond. Once I say a bind over, the motion disappears. So you want to make an argument about your bond?
I won't belabor the issue, I kind of made
I highly doubt that you won't belabor it, but go ahead.
I made my representations in the motion. Mr. Lester is, and again, this, as the court heard, this is an event that occurred inside the home of Mr. Lester. This wasn't presented at the motions hearing, but at the hearing today, but the weapons were both purchased legally and.
You were in front of me before on this issue. I knew that they were legally, he had them legally.
So Mr. Lester accepted the job, and with the current conditions that are set out with the court, he's not able to work.
What's the people's position? I know that I wrote GPS tether home confinement except for medical. What's the job, Mr. King?
He actually accepted a job as dispatch. Emergency dispatch.
For?
I believe it's for, I'm sorry?
DPD.
The Detroit Police Department.
Judge, I will object to.
Do they have knowledge, obviously, I mean, I know that in your motion, you made a comment that about him having the tether on,
Yeah.
although it's on his ankle, it's October, so he's not wearing shorts.
No, I mean, but it's still young. I think
No, and it was home confinement issue. What's the people's position? So you're just asking for,
a curfew if necessary, but I don't think he needs a GPS tether. He's not a threat to anyone in the public, and he's definitely not a flight risk.
and he turned in his gun.
Yeah, Judge, I don't have any issue with the defendant going to work, but I would ask the GPS tether stay on while he's at work.
The problem is one can cancel out the other. That was the only reason I wrote the motion.
The problem is what?
One, the tether can cancel out the employment. That's the only reason I wrote the motion. And I'll say again,
So they told him you can't come to work with a tether.
I asked, no one told him that specifically. I asked questions independently and without his knowledge to some people in that department. To be completely candid with the court, I know someone who works in that field and in that office, and it's my understanding that that is just not going to be acceptable if they see that on his ankle. Even though he has a presumption of innocence.
No, I understand all the. Mr. Curry?
Judge, I mean, my previous argument stands that you can go to work, but if you would request the tether stay.
I mean, there's been no contact, there's been no problems, correct?
To my knowledge, that's true. But
Nothing reported to me.
I'm gonna lift the tether and I'll make it the no contact with the personal bond, but obviously with the understanding if there's any issues at all that from the victim, that they need to reach out immediately to the police department and they'll re-examine that. I'm gonna bind the defendant over. The arraignment on the information will take place 2 weeks from today on November the 3rd at 9 a.m. And I'll continue the bond without the tether.
Thank you, Your Honor.
thank you, Judge.
Michelle, did you? On People versus Tangelia Smith. On People versus Tangelia Smith, what's?
Yes, we gotta get the
Yeah,
file.
you're right, Judge.
Is Miss Irwin here?
She's on Zoom, I'm assuming then that she didn't want to examine, she's on Zoom.
Pardon?
And he's going to get the file, I just thought in my mind, if she came on Zoom, maybe she came on Zoom because it's supposed to be in person, right?
It isn't in person, it is not.
Yeah, so I just thought maybe she's on Zoom because she wants to wait, I'm not sure. That would be my assumption, but.